This is section 8.6, and today we're going to be factoring quadratic trinomials that are in standard form when the a value equals 1. Let's first understand what a standard form quadratic trinomial is. We already know standard form. It's just organized from highest exponent 2, 1, and then over here just the constant, no variable. So we already know standard form. We already know what a trinomial is. We already know quadratic. That means power of 2, the degree of 2. So we already know a standard form quadratic trinomial. But the one thing to understand right now is that the a is just a number in front of x squared. The b is just a number in front of x. And the c is just a number that's a constant. Now, in today's assignment, in today's problems that we're doing, all of our a values are going to be 1. Okay? All of them are going to be 1. In other words, you're not going to see a 3 here. You're not going to see a 5. You're not going to see any numbers because a 1 will be invisible, right? So let's take a look at a couple of those. And I'm going to go over these 4 steps, which are actually like 7, to factor a quadratic trinomial, okay? It looks ridiculous because of all these steps, and it is because there's a shortcut that I'll show you on Monday that you'll be like, man, this is 1,000 times faster. But right now, let's go through the actual steps. So when we have a quadratic trinomial, check it out right here, it says teacher does it. That's a quadratic trinomial. And before we begin, what's the a value? 1. Like we said, all the a values are going to be 1. What's the b value? So the a value is 1. The b value is what? 1. No, the b value is not even 2. It's -2. The b value is -2. What about the c value? 24. -24. Okay, so we know how to identify a, b, and c. So now we're going to be able to apply the steps. So if we go back up to step 1, up here, it says, step 1, multiply a times c and get yourself an answer, a number. Okay, so everybody, let's write down the number 1 to show that we're working on step 1. And let's all write down a times c, and let's get a number. Now, how are we going to get a times c? We already know a is 1, and c is -24. So a times c is what? -24. Okay, and that's our answer for step 1. Let's move on to step 2. If we look up at the instructions, step 2 says, think of the multiples of that number from step 1 that combine to give you b. And it says tip, make a list. Okay, so you probably want to read this a couple of times. Think of the multiples of that number from step 1 that combine to give you b. So here we are. What number did we get for step 1? -24. So step 2 is to think of the multiples of -24 that combine together to give you b. And what is b? -2. Okay, so we need to make a list. It says tip, make a list. So what times what is -24? And let's just start with the number 1. Okay, 1 times what is -24? 1 times -24. That'll give us -24. How about 2? 2 times something give us -24? -12, okay. How about 3? 3 times something give us -24? -8, okay. How about 4? 4 times something give us -24? -6, And 5 times something give us -24? 6 times something, yeah, 6. So we're already done. Those are all the possible combinations of multiplying 2 numbers to get -24. But there again could be a sign switch. Now, what do I mean by a sign switch? It doesn't have to be +1 times -24. It could be -1 times +24, right? Okay, anyways. Step 2, once again, let me repeat step 2. You want to think of the multiples of the numbers from step 1, here they all are, that combine together to give you -2, the b value. Now, if I combine 1 and -24, I'll get -23. If I combine 2 and -12, I'll get -10. If I combine 3 and -8, what do I get? -5. If I combine 4 and -6, what do I get? -2. So that right there is the pair of numbers that I'm looking for. Let's move on now to step 3. Okay. Step 3 says, rewrite your b as those 2 numbers from step 2, thus changing your trinomial to a polynomial, 4 terms. Okay, I mean, think about that. Step 3 is to rewrite this expression, but instead of negative 2x in the middle, they want you to rewrite negative 2x as these two numbers, 4x and negative 6x. Okay, so let me rewrite the whole thing. X squared, and then plus 4x minus 6x, and of course minus 24 at the very end. Does everybody see and understand what I just did right there? You see this b value right here? The b value, what is the b value? Negative 2x, right? Or the b with the x, yeah, negative 2x. Now, if I added 4x, take away 6x, if I combine those, what do I get? I'll get that same value, negative 2x. So what I did on step 3 is I rewrote this b value with x, I rewrote it as these two numbers with x's. Because after all, it's the same thing. Yeah, 4x take away 6x is that negative 2x. So do you see how we changed this trinomial, 3 terms, to a polynomial, 4 terms? Yeah, do we understand it? Awesome. Why the heck would I want to change 3 terms to 4 terms? To group, to factor by grouping, right? So right here, I want to factor by grouping. So we should already know the steps to that. Step 1 is to separate. Step 2 is to factor. So I put parentheses down here. Then I think, what could I pull out of this first group? An x. Okay, so let me put an x out here. What would be left on the inside? X plus 4. That's right. And on the second group, what could I pull out of there?
Negative 6.
I could pull out a 6, but it's better to do negative 6. That way on the inside, you don't get negative x. You actually get the positive x and the positive 4 that we need to match up with the other binomial. Are you with me? And finally, the last step on factoring by grouping is you take out that binomial x plus 4, you write it out in the front, you put some huge parentheses right there, and what's left over inside of the huge parentheses? X minus 6, that's right. So let me rewrite this, x plus 4 times x minus 6. That is the factored form of the original up there, x squared minus 2x minus 24. Is it a long process? Heck yeah, it's long. Multi-step, right? Because you have 4 steps, and the 4th step is do factoring by grouping, and that itself is pretty long. Anyhow, let's say you're not too sure if you did it right. Since we know that factoring is reverse distributive property, we could actually, just for fun, or just to double check, we could distribute. What would x times x be? X squared. What's x times negative 6? Negative 6x. What is 4 times x? 4x. And what is 4 times negative 6? Negative 24. If I combine the negative 6x plus 4x, I'll get the negative 2x that's in the middle, right? And ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the original really was x squared minus 2x minus 24. And that's what we just proved right there. Does that make sense? So that's a multi-step process. How about you guys try this one, not by yourselves, but with a partner. Go for it. Here we go, guys. Step 1, multiply a times c. And that number is obviously 36 because 1 times 36 is 36. That's my answer for step 1. Let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is to think of the multiples of positive 36 that combine together to give you the b value, which in this case is negative 13. And it does say on the instructions, make a list. It'll help you out. So let's make a list of numbers on how I could get 36. 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9. Notice that I'm just going in order. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I could try more, like 5. Will 5 times something work? No, okay, so forget 5. How about 6? 6 times something? Yeah, 6 times 6. So you have all these different pairs of numbers. Now, which pair of numbers, when I combine, gives me the middle value b, this guy right here?
Negative 4. 3 times 12 times.
So if let's just go through just for fun. 1 plus 36, that's 37. Didn't work. 2 plus 18 is 20. Doesn't work. 3 plus 12 is 15. Doesn't work. 4 plus 9 is 13. Is this right here a positive 13? No, it's a negative 13. So we know we have the right numbers. We just have the wrong signs. Are you with me? So, I mean, 4 and 9 gives us 13, but we want a negative 13. So all we have to do is change the signs of the numbers. We have the right numbers, we just need to change those signs. So this 4 and 9 is the right pair of numbers, but let's switch it to negative 4 times negative 9. And that really will, when I multiply them, give me a positive 36. And when I combine them, it really does give me that b value of negative 13. So these pair of numbers, negative 4, this pair of number, negative 4 and negative 9, is the answer for my step 2. And now let's move on to step 3. Step 3 is to rewrite your polynomial, but you're going to rewrite that b value as those two numbers from step 2. So I'm going to start it just the way it starts up here, x squared. So there it is, x squared. Now the b value, instead of me writing negative 13x, I'm going to write what?
X squared.
Negative 4x minus 9x. So I rewrite my b value as these two numbers. Let me do them in red so you guys can see it. Negative 4x minus 9x. And then at the very end, the c value, the plus 36. So this is the tricky part. Changing your single b and breaking it up into these two numbers with the x on there. So what we did was we changed a trinomial to a polynomial. And why do we do that? So we could actually factor by grouping. So step 1 on grouping is to split them. All I did was rewrite everything, but with space between the first two and the second two terms. After that, I factor out of the first group. What could I pull out of there? Okay, what would be left on the inside of the parentheses? X minus 4. And how about this other one? What could I pull out of that one?
Negative 3.
A 3? A 9's better, but the negative 9 is the best. If we pull out a negative 9, we will get the exact same binomial, x minus 4. And remember, guys, that's the goal of factoring by grouping, to get that same blue binomial that you could pull out of both groups. So the final step on factoring by grouping is to pull out that common binomial. And once again, all I did was I took this binomial and this one and pulled it out in front of the parentheses. Now what's left right here? The x, okay? And over there, minus 9, okay? Again, these blank spots are left there on purpose, so you could see that the x minus 4s are no longer there. They're factored out in front. Now, of course, the correct size parentheses, x minus 4 times x minus 9. That's your factored form answer. If you wanted to double check it, all you have to do is distribute, combine like terms, and it truly will give you the original x squared minus 13x plus 36 if you double checked it. There's only one left. I'll see if you guys could do it on your own or help each other out. That's fine. Step 1, a times c. What is a times c? Negative 32. Step 2, think of the multiples of negative 32. 1 times negative 32. 2 times negative 16. 3 times nothing, doesn't work. 4 times negative 8. 5, no. 6, no. Okay, forget it. We're done. Okay, so we have these 3 pairs of numbers. Which of these pairs of numbers will combine together to give us the b value when we know that the b value is negative 4?
4 times negative 8.
4 times negative 8. All right, so this is the pair of numbers that we've been looking for. Step 3 is to rewrite the whole polynomial, but instead of 3 terms, we want 4 terms. And how are we going to do that? We're going to change the b value from negative 4x to become positive 4x minus 8x. Because positive 4x minus 8x is the same thing as negative 4x. So let me rewrite the whole thing. It starts with the x squared. And then instead of negative 4x, we're going to do a positive 4x minus 8x. And we got that just from these two numbers right here. And then the final number on the polynomial, the constant, is minus 32. So now we truly have 4 terms instead of 3. And now we could actually factor by grouping. Step 1 is to make 2 groups. So there are my 2 groups. All I did was make space between the first 2 terms and the second 2 terms. And then I'm going to factor something out of my first group. What could I pull out? An x. What do I have left? Okay, and then in the second group, what could I pull out? a negative 8. Whoa, sorry. Negative 8. And what do I have left on the inside? X also plus 4. Great. And now we could actually pull out that common binomial of x plus 4. I want to write it out here. X plus 4 is now on the outside. What's left over on the inside? X minus 8. So the correct size answer should be x plus 4 times x minus 8. So the deal is this. On Monday, I'm going to show you a shortcut that's so easy and so fast that you're going to hate me for teaching you this long method. But there's really a plan behind it. The long method is necessary. It's necessary when you have quadratic trinomials that do have an a value. You guys see how there's no a value right here? The a value is 1. In the future, we're going to be doing like a values of 2, 3, negative 6, 8. There's going to be numbers out here, and you need this long method to be able to do those more complicated problems. Okay? So I'll show you a shortcut to these quadratic trinomials on Monday if the a value is 1, but you still need the long method. So for homework, I'm going to give you a worksheet. It's this one right here. And on this worksheet, I know it's the weekend. Let's just do 1 through 5. And you're going to do it the long method. Okay? We're going to do 1 through 5. We're going to do the long method. You're probably going to have to write them over on a separate sheet of paper in your notebook or something, because there's obviously not enough space on this worksheet to do these 5 problems. But I do want you to practice over the weekend. That way you come back smarter on Monday and ready to move on.